When you think it can't get any worse, it does. This year, I'm sorry to tell you, the United States Senate is going to be voting on a constitutional amendment to repeal the First Amendment. I am telling you, I am not making this up. What it says is that politicians in Washington have unlimited constitutional authority to muzzle each and every one of you.
Citizens United. That's another one that's created a storm.
Well, person isn't used in the First Amendment. I mean, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech.
As a person, you're worried all that there's too much money in politics?
No, you know, I really don't.
You know, people are worried that the corporations now can buy.
I think this is a real conduct. If you believe that, we ought to go back to monarchy, that the people are such sheep that they just swallow whatever they see on television or read in the newspaper. The premise of democracy is that people are intelligent and can discern the true from the false, at least when as the campaign laws require, you know who is speaking.
But we don't know who's speaking in right now.
You know the organization that's speaking.
Not necessarily. But in some of this way this money is being raised, we will never know.
Well, the organization that's speaking.
So that's all you need to know. You don't need to know that they're hiding behind their...
Well, the press can find out.
Now, you've probably heard of Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission. It's the case in which the Supreme Court says that corporations are just like people and should be able to spend as much money as they want on politics. There's a lot more to the case in this idea of corporate personhood than what you might have heard. Do corporations have all the rights of real people? Well, no, of course they don't. But corporations have all the rights that we as people have when we assemble.
Citizens United came to the Supreme Court as a very small case.
What was behind it, of course, was a lot of money, corporate money, from people who wanted to achieve a certain result.
They were a corporation and they wanted to use their general treasury funds for the movie and for ads.
They want this to air on all of these stations in advance of the primaries in New Hampshire in early 2008, and this is against the law.
The court wasn't actually asked to make a sweeping ruling. There was a fairly narrow question. Could this self-proclaimed media company have its product ruled not to be a campaign contribution, but just simply a piece of journalism?
Chief Justice John Roberts, after the initial argument, said, you know what, we want you to argue this case differently. Instead of talking about this one film and this specific incident, we want you to talk about regulation of corporate money and union money and private expenditures in our politics. So the case was widened out from one incident with one little group and one film to a discussion of whether we should have regulations at all on corporate money and other private spending to influence our elections.
Citizens United won a resounding victory.
The Supreme Court wrongly decided that corporations were covered under the free speech amendments of the Constitution.
So we're under First Amendment analysis. We have to be very careful whenever we limit money.
Corporations were actually people whose First Amendment rights to freedom of speech was being infringed upon when they were told they could only put X number of dollars into a campaign.
What speech are we really quieting when every individual member of a corporation can speak for themselves?
You can have a group of billionaires, a group of corporate executives sitting around the room, and they're going to say, look, here's a guy in California, here's somebody in Nevada, here's somebody in Oregon who's opposing our interests. We have got to defeat that person. All right, I want you to put $20 million in California, $15 million in Oregon, $10 million into Ohio. So somebody goes home, they turn on their TV, there's an ad by Citizens for a Better America, or whatever, attacking a candidate or supporting another candidate. Unlimited sums of money from corporations who go into their own corporate treasuries from the richest people in this country without any disclosure, bombarding the airwaves, electing those people who support big money. When somebody in the United States Senate has to go up to the table and cast the vote, and you're sitting there and thinking, if I vote against the interest of Wall Street, will I go home next week and find millions of dollars of ads bombarding my state against me because I cast that vote. Maybe I shouldn't cast that vote. I may disagree with some of these guys on issue after issue, but they did not get elected to sit around getting on the telephone hustling money. They want to do what they're supposed to do to represent their constituents, and very often they just don't have the time to study the issues, to fight for those issues, because they're doing fundraisers or they're raising money on the phone.